Sergeant Major, thank you for joining in the conversations with Sergeant Army Murphy members and the Non-Commissioned Officer Association. I know when I came to your office, there was something that we talked about, not just turning the switch, but I want to talk about being a brown female within the constructs of this uniform and how we can navigate our waters or our sectors of fire without being perceived as, if I'm direct, as either the B word or an asshole or I'm just angry. Could you share a little bit about your experiences with that, if any?
So I've had quite a few experiences, and it's hard to differentiate sometimes whether it's because I'm brown or because I'm a female. And so I think now that I'm a lot more mature and more seasoned, I don't care about perceptions. And what's important is that we show up as our true, authentic selves and not be concerned with the perceptions of others. Of course, we want to lead and walk and show up in a way where we're professional, we're poised, we're able to do our jobs how we're supposed to. But at the end of the day, we're not here to appease people. And I think that the source of our depression, anxiety, mental health issues, a lot of that anxiety comes from the pressure to try to please people, try to be a people pleaser. And you can't please people because their appetites are insatiable. So that's what I would say about that. And once I learned that lesson, once I did some self-reflection, some spiritual reflection, that helped me to just show up as my true authentic self. I know what I'm here for. I'm fully competent. I'm fully capable. And if your perception of it is other than what I give, then you can go home and you can deal with that.
So what do you think about the term where everybody says perception is your reality? Like everybody says your perception is your reality. Is that just something that we say, or do you think that's true?
I think it is definitely true. I'm a nerd in many ways. I read a lot of scientific books, specifically on neuroscience, not because I'm like to geek out, but because I just want to learn more about myself. And what I've learned in that is that our health, how we view the world, is definitely based off what we believe. So if you believe something, to you that is your reality. But your reality is not my responsibility. What you perceive as your reality is not my responsibility.
How can you communicate that to people within your work environment without them, or without getting pushback, or without them putting you into this box, or without them saying that you're the black sheep of the group?
I would say the Army gave us a perfect model, and it's the Army values. And I would just tell people if you live the Army values, then you don't worry about feedback and pushback, because if you're doing what you're supposed to do as a leader, you are going to meet resistance, because it's people's natural tendency to want to be comfortable. And when people take you out of your comfort, guess what? You get resistance. Because now I was comfortable in my blanket. Now you done lifted my blanket, and that's uncomfortable for me. And so for that reason, I'm going to give you resistance. And just because there's resistance there, that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I have to help lead people through what is it about this situation? What is it about what we're working on that causes you to have resistance, and then helping people to break through what that resistance is. And I think there's a negative connotation put on there being resistance there. It's not anything personal. It's business, and people want to be comfortable, and when they're uncomfortable, they will resist. It's just a human nature.
So when you meet that resistance, what would you say to somebody who feels lonely in their work environment, or feels like they're the only ones that uphold the standard, or they know it's not right to do, but they do it anyway because everybody else is doing it?
I would just tell them that everybody has to run their own race. They got to run and stay in their own lane, because if you don't, if you get in somebody else's lane, you try to run somebody else's race. If you watch the Olympics, you watch track and field, you'll get disqualified. So walk and run in your own lane. Love people, take care of people, be your true, authentic self. And then I just, too often we get too caught up and other people's. Their feelings become our feelings. Their luggage and duffel bags and baggage becomes our luggage and duffel bags. And so, the more awareness you have about yourself, the easier it is for you to help other people to navigate why they feel the need to have to people please.
And I want to talk about when you say turn on the switch. What does that mean, turn on the switch? Turn it on and turn it off.
I don't remember saying that. I say a lot of things. and I'm old, getting senile in my older age. But I think for some people, when they come to work or they put their uniform on, it's like they flip on a switch. And so when they show up, they're not their true, authentic self. And I used to think that there was an army version of me, there was a mom version of me. Like I had compartmentalized myself to the point where I wasn't fully myself in any of those arenas. And some people think that when they put their uniform on, they have to be this certain way or they try to be a certain way, and it's really not their true, authentic self. And I think that brings a certain level of counterproductive leadership to it, because people, like you talked about perceptions, people know when you're not being real. And so I don't think the army, I don't think being a mom, I don't think being a leader is something that you can switch on and switch it off. I think, show up as your holistic, true, authentic self.
What would you say to somebody who's struggling with that, or they don't even know how to get to their true inner self or authentic self?
The first thing I would encourage them to do is to tap in, or just to figure out what their spiritual beliefs are, what their center is, what their cornerstone is, what their values are. And I know that I'm promoting the Army a lot, but the Army has so many tools. And one of my favorite MRT skills is character strengths, and having people sit down and figure out, who am I truly? And the Bible talks about writing the vision and making it plain. Unless you've sat down and wrote out what your vision is, like where do you see yourself in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, then you're just wandering aimlessly. And so if someone were to ask me to help them to navigate that issue, I would have them go back and do some self-reflection. And one of the things I started to do when I was a first sergeant is I started keeping a planner/journal. And in my planner, I have my calendar events, and I'm also capturing what are the good things that happened to me this week or today or this month, and just doing some reflection there. And everything that I thought was bad, there was some good there too. I just chose not to see it because I was so focused on what was negative. And writing your vision, writing out where you see yourself helps gives you some centeredness and some sense of self, and where exactly you are in life.
When we talk about spirituality, do you verbally express that while you're in uniform?
I do. And I have not asked a person yet that I saw and I said, do you want me to pray for you? I have yet for somebody to tell me no. Regardless of whether they're atheists, I have had soldiers before that were wizards and warlocks and, all type Muslim, all different types of religion. But, I think most people believe that there's something bigger than themselves. And it may be Jesus, it may be Muhammad, but usually when people are dealing with life circumstances or they want to know the source, if you ask me, I will tell you, where I'm centered and rooted at. But, I think generally most people want to know that they're loved, that they're prayed for.
So how did you get to the point where you are now? Was that journaling? Was that praying? Was that having mentors? Exercising? What did that look like?
For me, spirituality, just getting to a place in life where you're so broken that you don't have nobody else but God or spirituality. And so just getting to that place and just really reading the word. And there's a scripture I read, I can't tell you exactly which passage it is, but it talks about how God knew us before we were born, how he knit us in our mother's womb, how he set us apart and chose us. And once I realized that I have an identity that is unique, that is unlike anybody else. I don't have to look at, someone on Instagram and think that I need to try to accomplish like that person. Like the Lord uniquely knit me in my mother's womb. Before I was even thought of, he had already had me on assignment. And so that is one scripture that centers me. And so I just stick true to my faith, and I believe that my biblical scriptures, my biblical principles are very much aligned with the Army. Very much.
Can you go into more detail about that?
Yeah, so loyalty. I mean, the leadership acronym that we say, having integrity, I think those are all very much spiritual concepts. I mean, it's an acronym, and, we say it, we teach it to soldiers. But I think, you can't move in your life without that foundation. So.
Yes. So I want to talk about a scenario that I had a year ago. Me and some drill sergeants were conducting an ACFT, and I asked a junior drill sergeant for help. And the response was, why does a senior non-commissioned officer need help? And then they go on, and then I got to the point where I just cussed everybody out. And then one of the drill sergeants was poking the bear. And so I said, if you don't get the blank out my face, I'm going to put my hands on you. What advice would you give to me for me to repair that relationship and also to try to prevent that in the future?
One way I would say to repair the relationship is to demonstrate humility without making any excuses or giving any reasoning. Just say, I apologize for my behavior, my conduct. I didn't mean to offend you. And that person has a choice whether to want to mend or accept your apology, or they may not. But you still walk in love with that person and not at odds with that person. And I would definitely encourage you to do some self-reflection, because where you're centered, where your cornerstone is on its foundation and it's planted, can't be moved by external circumstances. And the external circumstances, rather than be responsive, it was reactive. And so in that reaction, it caused you to present yourself in a way that's not true to you, because you were very reactive to your external circumstance rather than tapping into your inner core. What makes you? What are those values?
So we can tie that into adversity. So when you're going through adversity, as long as you have that center and that pillar, no matter what you're going through, you know who you are spiritually.
Right.
That I think that's amazing. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah. So just to be centered. Is there an approach someone can take to try to find their center? Because what if I'm that person that, I didn't grow up in the church, or I didn't grow up having somebody coach, mentor, and develop me or nurture me. I had to live on the streets. Like, what can I do to try to find the path where I am centered within the universe or God or whatever you want to call it?
I think the first thing would be to find your identity. What is it rooted in? And to realize that your life's journey does not define who you are as an individual. So if you were homeless, if your family members were on crack, if your dad don't show up when he say he's going to show up, that is not a reflection of you. And so I'll always revert back to self-awareness. Who am I? Who am I being called to be into? What is the work I'm supposed to do in the world? And just knowing, a part of walking in this world means saying no to stuff. And that means it could be a relationship, it could be a family member, but in order for you to do what you're called to do, you have to know that the only person that can run your race is you. And some people will want to run with you, alongside you, and some people are like, no, I'm good on that. And you got to be okay with the people that say, no, I'm good on that. And you just keep
With
running.
that being said, like being comfortable with hearing the word no or I can't rock with you, how can someone try to figure that out when it's their command team saying that, no, this is not how this is going to be. I need you to do X, Y, and Z, regardless of A, B, and C.
Disagreement is okay. And at the end of the day, non-commissioned officers, we have a role. And so as far as command teams, I will advise my commander, my command teams. They can accept my advice or not, and I leave it there. I make peace with it. I salute, yes ma'am, yes sir. And whatever my commander's intent is, even if I don't agree with it, I just keep moving out. And know at the end of the day that I will not compromise my integrity. I mean, it's the NCO creed. You don't compromise your integrity, your moral, your courage. You don't do those things. And so if what I'm being asked to do doesn't compromise my values, I just keep it moving and do the best that I can with what I have, with what I've been asked to do. And I try to build a team.
That is amazing. Oh my gosh, I feel all warm and gooey inside. I'm going to have to cut that out. It is like, oh my gosh. Can you share an experience of conflict and adversity, and please share steps that you took to help resolve matters between two individuals?
Ooh, there's been so many.
Oh.
As a matter of fact, I got a text this morning from one of my senior NCOs who wanted to mitigate some conflict with another NCO. And what I found from listening to the two of them is it was just communication. Instead of having a humility to walk 50 feet, they would rather send emails back and forth to one another. And I'm like, you work right across the hall from each other. Just go over there. And, a lot of times we don't see ourselves as brothers and sisters in arms. And one of the things I pray for every day is like, Lord, bless my brothers and my sisters in arms. And when you serve, the people that you serve, they're your family. And when you're serving your family, you don't see white, you don't see black, you don't see hair texture, you don't see male, you don't see female. You see, that's my sister. She's hurting. That's my sister. She's overwhelmed. How can I help? And I think if more people had a selfless approach, and that's going back to the Army values, if more people had a selfless approach, I think it may not prevent conflict, but I think it would help people to navigate through conflict. And conflict is not bad, because in order to sharpen the sword or to forge a diamond, it's gonna take some pounding and some roughing up. And so I think there's a negative connotation given to having conflict. But in order to be great, sometimes we gotta not agree and come to figure out, well, what is gonna make us great? And that is conflict. And it's okay to be in conflict with somebody without it being personal. And I think we make conflict personal.
Do you think that's part of our council culture within the civilian world, that everybody's offended by what everybody says?
Yes. I definitely think we're just too quick to write people off and cancel people. And that goes back, I'm reverting back to self-awareness. I don't know one person that's perfect, that hasn't jacked some stuff up, made some bad decisions, lost some money or friends or relationships. And I think sometimes people want to just be black and white, or they want to find fault in others and not look at themselves. And so I know I ain't perfect, so when I see somebody jacking up, I'm like, hey sis, like I used to be in these streets too, like you might want to dial it back. But I think if people would just, as Top Cruise was talking, just have some emotional intelligence. GT score might be high, PT score might be extended scale. You have all of this on paper intelligence, but what about your emotional intelligence? Might be very, very low. And so That's, self-awareness is what I would say, and treat others as you would want to be treated.
So I want to talk about a little bit about true freedom and your approach. And what I think true freedom is not caring about how you are truly perceived. And how did you get there? Like, what was your journey like? Did you have like conflict that made you aware, or was it taught? Was it learned? How did you get to where you truly don't care how people perceive you?
Honestly, the Bible. Honestly, just having a daily practice where I'm not distracted. People don't mess with you at 5 o'clock in the morning, or whatever time you get up. That's where it's still dark outside. So I get up early. I don't check Facebook. I'm not checking if you text me between this time and this time, you're going to get probably ignored. So I value my time in meditation. I value my time in prayer, and just, true, full transparency. I just pace around in my room in the morning, and I'm just meditating to God. I'm telling God the challenges and issues and feelings, and just once you get it out and you can deal with it, you let it go. You walk out into the world ready and prepared for what the world has for you. And I don't think it's a destination like, ooh, skirt. I have just truly like arrived. I can put the car in park. I think it's a journey. It's a journey. And I was reading in the book of Numbers yesterday, and it was talking about Moses. And if you know any biblical stories about Moses, the people in Egypt were being oppressed. They were being overworked. They were being abused. They were in slavery. They were being mistreated. And they were crying out to God for a savior. And so he sent a man, Moses. And I was reading in the Bible yesterday how the Lord allowed these poisonous snakes to bite the people, and they was just dying. And he told Moses, he said, create a bronze replica of a poisonous snake, and when the people look at it, they'll be healed. And the reason why the Lord did that is because he was angry. These people cried out to me because they were in slavery. They were oppressed. They were in bondage. They asked me for freedom. I'm leading them to freedom, and they're complaining about the journey. They haven't even got to the land that's flowing with milk and honey, the place that I promised them where they would be successful, they would be prosperous, they would, be able to exponentially grow whatever it is that I've given them. They're complaining about the journey along the way. The Lord rained down manna from heaven. He gave them food. He gave them water. He kept them protected. But because they weren't comfortable, they complained. And I think we're the same way. We're on a journey, and being on a journey means sometimes it's going to rain. You might get lost. You may get delayed, and you can't get where you think you're supposed to be by a certain time. And so we grow frustrated with the journey instead of looking at the journey as a process and saying, hey, I faced a challenge. I thought I was going to be here by now, and I'm still back here. What wisdom can I take away from this adversity? How can I take this adversity and make it positive? And so I don't know if I answered your question, but that's what I would say to that is that, just embrace the journey. And once I realized that God is the CEO, at the end of the day, he's the only person that can put me in a new unit, that can promote me or not promote me. Once I took the power away from other people, it empowered me. It's true freedom is being free. You only have the control that God gives you. You can't promote me. You can't demote me. Whatever happens to me is because God allowed it. He allowed it to happen. And we're on a training. Every day we're in a training platform. And if God throw you a curveball, how are you going to handle it? Because we're in training. He's shaping us because there's people that need us. There's people that we're supposed to lead. There's people that we're supposed to serve. And how can you serve? How can you empathize with others? How can you relate to people if you haven't gone through anything? You can't. Nobody wants to talk to somebody who walks on water. Their life is perfect. Their finances is perfect. Their marriage is perfect. Their kids, get straight A's. You can't relate to somebody like that. So I realized that every day, to include me sitting right here right now, I am in training. And until the Lord removes me from this earth, my work is not done. And I'm always in training. I'm always growing. I'm always seeking ways to improve myself. And so if someone gives me criticism, in this ear, out this ear, if it fit, the shoe fit, it don't fit. But I do have to say, okay, well, they said that, and really look at myself and look at the source of, where people are talking to me from. Are they a reliable source? Because everybody that's speaking to your life is not necessarily, they not worthy of being cited. They're not a reliable source. So, you just really have to be careful of, who you allow to speak into your life. And just remember, adversity, trials, tribulation, heartbreak, betrayal, it's a part of the process. It's a part of the process.
Yeah. That was that was really good. So I'm going to use myself again. So I had to go through a process for 7 months, and it was the first time in my life where I had to take a look at my belief system, because I am one of those soldiers that truly drank the Kool-Aid. Like, I believed everything about the Army. I believed in Army values. I believed in the system, the processes. And I had a moment in time where the process was broken. And I had to go through a journey of, why is this happening to me? How did I attract myself to this situation? And what can I do moving forward? And during that process, I sought out behavioral health, and the therapist told me that the journey might not be yours, it might be somebody else's. And God is using you to fix something that is broken. And when we're going through adversity, sometimes we're so caught up in what we're going through, we don't realize that the process is making us a better human being. The process is making other people better human beings. And God is using not just you, but other people to make something better. And when I hear you speak about meditating in God and reading Bible verses, it's so true. But as we're going through that journey, sometimes we just forget where we come from. And it's hard to remember that all will be well, regardless. Like, all will be well.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if such and such says that you're an angry black woman. It doesn't matter if such and such says that you think you're better than everybody. It doesn't matter if such and such says or whatever. As long as you are truly true to who you are, and you navigate that, and all will be well. But at the same time, wearing this uniform can make that difficult. So how did you get to a point where you can be who you are while in the uniform?
I don't have a choice but to be who I am while in the uniform. Because when the Army recruits people and they retain people, the operative word is people. And the Army's priority is people first. So how can you be people first if you ain't a people? If you don't display what it is to be human, even when you're going through adversity. And I think there's a false teaching that you just suck it up and drive on, you fake it till you make it. And that is some of the most toxic teaching I've ever heard in my life. If somebody is grieving, then they need to grieve. If somebody is having an issue, then they need to, the time and the space to have their emotions. That doesn't mean that the work stops, but you acknowledge what it is that you or the people that you serve are experiencing, because those are human issues. And you said it perfectly clear. You drank the Kool-Aid. And I think a lot of people put all their eggs in the Army basket. The Army is a human-made construct, which means it's imperfect. And so when the construct fails you, what do you lean back on? So now you got to go back to what we talked about. You got to go back to self. What are my values? What do I believe about me? Because guess what? Sometimes, whether you've been in 15, 17, 20, leaders get in this mindset, well, I'm just going to do my 20, or I did 15, and the Army don't owe us nothing. And at any time, you had to hang up your boots, hang up your uniform. I mean, it is what it is. It's a human-made construct that has a mission. It has a tempo at which it runs. And so, you may just have to be at peace with, I'm going to walk and hold hands with the Army. And if it let go, then it doesn't stop me from being me. But if my identity is completely tied and wrapped up into the Army, when I don't have the Army, then it's kind of like what Sergeant Cruz says, then you don't have it. You feel like you lost everything. So your value added to the Army, not the center of the Army, or the Army is not the center of you. So it's, how am I adding value to this entity? How is this entity adding value to me without it consuming who I am as a person? So I'm me. I'm just in camouflage.
So when it comes to communication and being direct, do you think being direct can be misconstrued as disrespectful or unprofessional?
It can, but I would say that people that construe it that way are either misinformed or immature. So part of what makes leadership counterproductive is passive aggressiveness. Say what it is that you're trying to say. Now, of course, there's a way to carry yourself, a tactful and respectful manner in which to speak to other people, but we should want people to, that's a sign of maturity when somebody is direct with you and you like, okay, it's black? Okay, it's black then. But, I think because we try to people please, or we're trying to please this audience and rub elbows with these leaders, that we're passive aggressive about how we communicate. And then, there's passive aggressive communication, assertive, and then there's aggressive. And so self-reflecting is, how do I communicate? Me being assertive is asking for what I want. You can either say yes or you can say no. Me being aggressive comes with a certain tone and pitch of my voice. It comes with a certain way that I'm holding myself that presents itself as aggressive. And so I would just say that if someone is direct and it's misinterpreted wrong, the person on the other end of the directness is probably misinformed or immature. They want people to coddle them and talk to them sweetly and gently and kindly, but that's not the way that the world works. If somebody has something to ask you or to say to you, you should want them to be direct. That way, I don't have to misunderstand what you said. You told me to wear black and green, and I got on black and green.
So now I'm going to ask some conclusion questions. Leadership is essential. In your own words, how would you define it and how do you apply it?
Leadership is essential. And the Bible talks about taking leadership seriously because it is a responsibility. It does come with weight to it. And there are certain people that are just not strong enough to carry the weight. Can everybody be a leader? I firmly believe so. God made us uniquely. He made us all individual. He gave us all different personalities, and I think everybody is capable of being a leader. I think what makes some person a leader and somebody not a leader is that they don't want to carry the responsibility that goes with being a leader. And some people lead from the rank that's on their uniform, and some people are just truly leaders indeed. And I would say leadership equals serving. So if you are a leader, who is it that you're serving? You're not here to rule over people and direct and manage and do these things. I'm here to serve. How can I enable you to get the mission done so we could be great? Because I want streamers and ribbons and awards and accolades. I want to be hype at PT. So how can I enable us to perform better? How can I serve you? Who do you need me to talk to? You need to activate my Sergeant Major rank? Okay, well, I'll go down here and talk to, whomever, so that I can better enable us to accomplish what the Army has asked us to accomplish. And so leadership, in my definition, is service, which comes with, as the Army defines it, the ability to influence. And some people's influence is not good influence. You can influence people the wrong way. And so just having self-awareness of, I am being watched. I'm here to serve, but I'm also being watched. And you win others over more without words. So leadership is the stuff that you're doing when you're not talking, when you're not standing in front of formation. When people are just watching you have a casual conversation, they're like, oh, she a real one. I see how she moves, she talk, So I would just say leadership is service.
So far in your Army career, what might be some actions or non-actions you regret?
Actions I regret is not having self-awareness early enough, not investing in myself early enough, people pleasing, overwhelming myself, trying to take on more than I can handle, not being direct, just saying, oh, you need me to do that, and I'll go do it, and then to the point where you just completely burn yourself out. And so that's something about myself and my experience over these years that I regret. I like taking naps. I probably should take a nap. It's good. It's good to rest. It's good to unplug and do those things. And I regret being on 24/7 because it's not healthy.
If you were to create a mantra, what would that mantra be and why?
That's a difficult question. Not a difficult question, a challenging question. My mantra would be, just do it. And I know that's the Nike thing, but and another one of my favorite biblical scriptures, it says, God's work is my food. That's what I eat. He told me to do his work, and that's what fills me. And if I'm looking for fulfillment from anything else, the cup gonna be empty, because I can't get my fulfillment from anything else. And so I would definitely say, whatever it is that your purpose to do, if that is making French fries at McDonald's, kill the game at making your fries. So whatever work it is that you've been called and put on this earth to do, because there's dignity in all work. So if you're cleaning toilets or scooping up poop, kill the game at doing that. So I would tell people to just do it. Whatever your work is, be excellent at what it is that you're doing, and don't allow somebody standing up on stage for that job to seem more important than the one you're doing. Because we all need our pinky toes, and we all need our teeth, and so you can't minimize the small, teeny body parts. Like I need my eyelashes. That's what keep my eyeball from getting scratched. But if we despise the small work, trying to aspire to something that somebody else is doing and they running in their lane, then I would just say that would be a life's failure.
What is one of the most significant lessons learned thus far in your career that you can share?
Rest is the most significant lesson I've learned. Taking time for myself that is undistracted. Self-care.
Very good. Well, thank you for your time, Sergeant.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
That was great.